Xenobiologists exchanged glances, their body language a mix of confusion and excitement. The lead researcher spoke again, his voice cautious. "Sarah, you've been through a traumatic experience. Why don't you come with us? We can get you medical attention, debrief you properly." "I'm not leaving without Sixies," Sarah said firmly. "And I'm not letting you treat this planet like a laboratory specimen. There's so much you don't understand." She could sense the researchers' growing unease. One of them, a woman judging by her build, stepped forward with a tranquilizer gun raised. "Sarah, please, that creature could be influencing your mind. We need to get you to safety." Sixies let out a low growl, moving to place itself between Sarah and the researchers. The tension in the air was palpable, the situation balanced on a knife's edge. Sarah's mind raced. She needed to defuse this situation before it spiraled out of control. Then, an idea struck her. She turned to Sixies, speaking rapidly. "The game. Show them the game we made. It'll prove your intelligence." Sixies blinked in understanding. It turned back to the cave, returning moments later with the pebble game they had devised during the long days of the acid storm. With deliberate movements, it set up the game, then looked expectantly at the researchers. "This is a game we created together," Sarah explained. "It's based on complex mathematical principles. Sixies isn't just smart, he's sapient. His people built a civilization that rivals our own." The lead researcher hesitated, then stepped forward. "All right, Sarah, show us how it works." For the next hour, Sarah and Sixies demonstrated the game, explaining the intricate rules and strategies they had developed. The researchers watched in growing amazement as Sixies to display problem-solving skills and abstract thinking far beyond what they had expected from alien wildlife. As the demonstration concluded, the lead researcher removed his helmet, his face a mix of awe and chagrin. "Sarah," he said, his voice filled with respect, "I owe you an apology. This is beyond anything we could have imagined. You've made first contact with an advanced alien civilization." Sarah smiled, relief washing over her. "Not just contact," she corrected. "We've formed a partnership. Sixies and I have learned so much from each other. And there's so much more to discover." The woman who had held the tranquilizer gun stepped forward, her weapon now lowered. "What are you proposing, Sarah?" Sarah straightened, feeling the weight of the moment. She was no longer just a girl lost on an alien world. She was a bridge between two civilizations, a defender of both humanity's interests and the rights of her alien friends. "I'm proposing a joint mission," she said firmly. "Not a human expedition studying alien subjects, but a true collaboration between our peoples. Sixies' civilization has lost so much, but together we can help them reclaim their heritage. And in the process, humanity can learn and grow in ways we never imagined." She turned to Sixies, feeling a swell of emotion. "What do you say, partner? Ready to make history?" Sixies rumbled, its six eyes gleaming with what Sarah now recognized as pride and affection. It raised one massive paw, gesturing towards the horizon, where the alien sun was setting in a blaze of purple and orange. Sarah grinned, understanding the unspoken message. "He says, the future is ours to shape, together." The lead researcher nodded, a smile spreading across his face. "Well then, Sarah Chen, Ambassador of Earth and Planet Purple, where do we start?" As the humans and Sixies began to discuss the logistics of this unprecedented partnership, Sarah felt a sense of profound rightness settle over her. She had come to this world as a stowaway, a girl seeking adventure. She was leaving it as something much more, a defender of humanity's highest ideals, a bridge between worlds, and a shining example of what could be accomplished when fear gave way to understanding. The sun dipped below the horizon, bathing the alien landscape in twilight. But for Sarah, Sixies, and their newfound allies, it felt like a new dawn. The adventure that had begun with a crash landing was far from over. In fact, Sarah realized with a thrill of excitement, it was only just beginning. Day 30, final entry. She spoke into her holo recorder. Current status: no longer stranded, no longer alone, ready to embark on the greatest journey of all. The journey of discovery, cooperation, and hope. Planet Purple, you haven't seen anything yet. With 6 eyes at her side and the promise of a brighter future ahead, Sarah Chen, the fierce defender of humanity and unexpected ambassador to the stars, took her first steps into a new chapter of galactic history. Stranded in the stars. Sarah's heart raced as she crouched in the shadows of the alien research vessel's cargo hold. The 16-year-old prodigy had pulled off the impossible, sneaking aboard the Zarkonian ship right under the noses of both human and alien security. Her fingers trembled with excitement as she ran them over the smooth, iridescent surface of what appeared to be a data terminal. "Oh, you beautiful piece of tech," she whispered, her green eyes wide with wonder. "What secrets are you hiding?" The ship hummed around her, its alien rhythms both thrilling and terrifying. Sarah had always been fascinated by xenotechnology, devouring every scrap of information humanity had gleaned from its still new interactions with the galactic community. But textbooks and holograms paled in comparison to the real thing. She pulled a compact holo recorder from her pocket, preparing to document her discovery. Just as she activated it, a violent tremor shook the ship, nearly knocking her off her feet. "What the?" Sarah gasped, steadying herself against a bulkhead. Red lights began pulsing throughout the cargo hold, accompanied by a shrill, warbling alarm that made her teeth ache. The ship lurched again, more violently this time. The sound of tearing metal echoed through the hull, followed by the unmistakable hiss of atmosphere venting into space. Panic gripped Sarah's chest. This wasn't part of the plan. She was supposed to sneak a quick look at alien tech, maybe snag some data, and then slip away unnoticed when they docked at Galileo Station. Now, the ship was clearly under attack, and she was trapped in the middle of it. Another explosion rocked the vessel. Sarah was thrown across the cargo hold, slamming into a stack of metallic crates. Pain blossomed in her shoulder, but adrenaline kept her moving. She scrambled to her feet, searching desperately for a way out. The cargo hold's main door was sealed shut, likely an automatic response to the attack. Sarah's eyes darted around the room, finally landing on a small hatch labeled with alien script. "Please be an escape pod," she muttered, racing towards it. As if the universe had heard her plea, the hatch slid open with a pneumatic hiss. Inside was a cramped compartment barely large enough for a single Zarkonian, which meant it was more than spacious enough for Sarah's petted human frame. She didn't hesitate. Sarah dove into the pod, her hands flying over the alien controls. Years of late-night study sessions on xenoengineering were about to pay off, if she could just figure out how to. The pod shuddered and detached from the ship with a metallic clang. Sarah let out a whoop of triumph, which quickly turned into a scream as the tiny vessel was violently ejected into space. Through the pod's small viewport, Sarah caught a glimpse of the chaos unfolding around her. The Zarkonian research vessel was engulfed in flames, pieces of its hull breaking apart and drifting into the void. Attacking it was a menacing ship of unknown design, its surface covered in cruel, barbed protrusions. Before Sarah could process what she was seeing, her pod was caught in the gravity well of a nearby planet. The vessel shuddered as it entered the atmosphere, quickly heating up to dangerous levels. Come on," Sarah muttered, her fingers dancing over the controls. She managed to activate some kind of heat shielding, but the pod's trajectory was still far too steep. Impact was imminent. Sarah braced herself, curling into a tight ball as the pod streaked across the alien sky like a meteor. The last thing she saw before squeezing her eyes shut was a blur of purple vegetation rushing up to meet her. The impact was brutal. Sarah was tossed around the interior of the pod like a rag doll, her world reduced to a cacophony of screeching metal and shattering equipment. When the pod finally came to rest, an eerie silence fell. For a long moment, Sarah didn't move, convinced that she must be dead. Then, a sharp pain in her ribs made her gasp. Definitely not dead then. Groaning, She uncurled herself and took stock of her situation. The pod was a wreck, its systems dark and unresponsive. The thin trickle of acrid smoke rose from a shattered control panel. The viewport had cracked but miraculously held together, revealing a landscape that was decidedly alien. Together, human and alien, they turned to face the storm and the future that lay beyond it. Humanity's fierce defender. The acid storm had finally passed, leaving behind a transformed landscape. The purple foliage glistened with a metallic sheen, and new, bizarre life forms had emerged from the nooks and crannies of Planet Purple. For Sarah and Sixes, it marked the beginning of a new chapter in their unlikely partnership. Day 30 on Planet Purple. Sarah spoke into her repaired holo recorder, her voice strong and clear. The storm has reshaped more than just the terrain. It's reshaped us too. Sixes and I have developed a form of communication that goes beyond simple gestures. It's as if we can sense each other's thoughts and emotions. She glanced at her alien companion, who was currently using its newfound dexterity to weave a complex net from salvaged materials. Sixes looked up, its 6 eyes blinking in a pattern that Sarah now recognized as amusement. Yeah, laugh it up, big guy. Sarah chuckled. Not all of us can be natural-born basket weavers. Their moment of levity was interrupted by a sound that made them both freeze, the distant hum of engines. Sarah's heart leaped into her throat. After a month of isolation, the sound of human technology was both thrilling and terrifying. Sixes, she whispered, we got company. The alien creature tensed, its body language shifting from relaxed to alert in an instant. It moved to the cave entrance, peering out with all 6 eyes scanning the horizon. Sarah joined it, shading her eyes against the alien sun's glare. In the distance, she could make out the sleek form of a xenobiologist expedition ship. It was unmistakably of human design, its chrome surface reflecting the purple hues of the alien landscape. They're here, Sarah breathed, a mix of emotions swirling within her. Humans. My people. I should be thrilled. But she trailed off, looking at Sixes. The alien met her gaze, and Sarah felt a wave of understanding pass between them. This wasn't just about her rescue anymore. It was about protecting the incredible secret they had uncovered, the lost civilization of Sixes people. We need a plan, Sarah said firmly. We can't let them just barge in and treat this place like a science experiment. Your people, your history, it needs to be protected. Sixes rumbled in agreement, then gestured towards Sarah's makeshift workshop in the cave. Sarah's eyes lit up as she caught the alien's meaning. Brilliant, she exclaimed. We'll use our tech to communicate with them. Show them we're not just some stranded kid and a local beast. We're partners, ambassadors of 2 worlds. They worked quickly, Sarah's nimble fingers combining human and alien technology, while Sixes provided materials and surprising insights. Within hours, they had cobbled together a crude but functional universal translator. Just in time, too. The sound of the ship's engines grew louder, and Sarah could now make out figures in environmental suits approaching their cave. Ready? Sarah asked, looking up at her alien friend. Sixes bobbed its massive head, its eyes conveying a mix of determination and trust. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped out of the cave, 6 eyes at her side. The approaching humans stopped in their tracks, clearly shocked by the sight of a young girl standing shoulder to shoulder with a massive alien creature. Hello, Sarah called out, her voice amplified by the translator. I'm Sarah Chen, the girl who went missing from the Zarkonian research vessel. And this is my friend, 6 Eyes. Welcome to Planet Purple. The lead figure in the environmental suit stepped forward, his voice tinny through the suit's speakers. Sarah Chen. My God, we thought you were dead. Are you all right? Is that creature holding you captive? Sarah felt a flash of indignation. She placed a hand on 6's flank, feeling the alien's muscles tense under her touch. 6 isn't holding me captive. He's my friend, my partner. And he's a lot more than just a creature. He's a member of an advanced civilization that once ruled this planet. Sixes gently took the beacon, cradling it carefully in one massive paw. It gave Sarah one last look, its 6 eyes conveying a depth of emotion she wouldn't have thought possible just days ago. "Be careful out there, partner," Sarah said softly. "I'll be waiting for you." With a final nod, 6 eyes lumbered towards the cave entrance. Sarah summoned the last of her strength to deactivate the electromagnetic field. The instant it dropped, 6 eyes burst out into the acid storm, its frond armor sizzling under the caustic onslaught. Sarah quickly reactivated the field, then collapsed back onto her bed, her strength spent. As consciousness slipped away from her, her fevered mind began to wander. She found herself floating in a vast, swirling cosmos of purple and orange. Stars pulsed around her in rhythm with her own heartbeat. In the distance, she could make out strange, shadowy forms, alien yet somehow familiar. "Hello," Sarah called out, her voice echoing strangely in the void. "Is anyone there?" The shadows shifted, coalescing into more definite shapes. Sarah gasped as she recognized one of them. It was Sixes, or at least a representation of it. But there were others too, creatures she had glimpsed in the alien forest, but never clearly seen. They moved around her in a complex dance, their movements telling a story she could almost, but not quite, understand. She saw flashes of Planet Purple's history, great migrations, epic battles, the rise and fall of civilizations she could barely comprehend. And through it all, she saw Sixes species, not just beasts, but builders, thinkers, explorers. She saw them crafting tools, cultivating the bioluminescent organisms in their caves, developing a rich culture all their own. "You're not just intelligent," Sarah realized, awe filling her voice. "You're a whole civilization. But then why? Why did you seem so primitive when we first met?" The images shifted, showing her scenes of devastation. A great cataclysm, turning the once verdant planet into the harsh world she knew. She saw Sixes people struggling to survive, forced to abandon their technology and rely on more primitive means. "You adapted," Sarah breathed. "You gave up your advancements to survive. But you didn't lose your intelligence, your curiosity. You just changed how you used it." The swirling cosmos around her pulsed, and Sarah felt a sense of affirmation. She was on the right track, understanding things that had been hidden from her. "But why show me this?" she asked. "Why now?" The shadows swirled again, and this time Sarah saw herself. She watched her own journey on Planet Purple, from terrified crash survivor to resourceful alien diplomat. She saw her interactions with Sixes, the growing trust and understanding between them. And then she saw something more, a future, hazy and uncertain, but full of possibility. She saw herself and Sixes working together to unlock the lost knowledge of this world. She saw first contact with her own people, bridges being built between 2 very different civilizations. We could help each other, Sarah realized. Humans, and whatever Sixes people are called. We could learn from each other, grow together. The vision faded, leaving Sarah once again floating in the cosmic void. But now, she felt a sense of purpose, of destiny. "I understand now," she said to the swirling stars around her. "This isn't just about my survival. It's about something much bigger. Thank you for showing me." The cosmos began to fade, and Sarah felt herself being pulled back to consciousness. As the dream world slipped away, she heard a voice, not with her ears, but in her mind. It was alien yet familiar, complex yet understandable. "Wake up, Sarah of Earth," it said. "Your journey is just beginning." Sarah's eyes snapped open. She was back in the cave, the acid storm still raging outside their protective bubble. But something had changed. She felt stronger, more focused. The fever that had gripped her was fading, replaced by a clarity of purpose she had never known before. And there, standing over her with concern in all 6 of its eyes, was Sixes. In one paw, it held a cluster of strange, glowing fungi. You made it back, Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. She reached out, taking the fungi from Sixie's. Somehow, she knew exactly what to do with them. As she prepared the alien medicine, Sarah's mind raced with the implications of her vision. She had come to this planet as a stowaway, a girl out of her depth. But now she realized she had become something more. She was a bridge between worlds, the key to unlocking a future of cooperation and shared knowledge. Sixties, she said, looking up at her alien friend with new understanding. We have a lot of work to do. Are you ready? Sixties rumbled in affirmation, its eyes shining with an intelligence Sarah could now fully appreciate. Evolving understanding. The acid storm had raged for what felt like an eternity. In the relative safety of their electromagnetic bubble, Sarah and Six Eyes had settled into an uneasy routine. Sarah spent her time tinkering with salvage technology and attempting to communicate with her alien companion, while Six Eyes alternated between napping and watching Sarah with unblinking curiosity. Day 12 on Planet Purple, Sarah croaked into her holo recorder, her voice raw from the metallic tang that permeated the air. The storm is showing no signs of letting up. Our food supplies are running low, and I'm starting to feel off. She glanced at Sixties, who was currently engrossed in a game Sarah had devised using pebbles and drawn circles. The alien creatures seemed to be thriving in the harsh conditions, but Sarah could feel her own strength waning. I've been trying to conserve our power cell, she continued, but if this storm doesn't break soon, we'll be defenseless against the acid rain. And there's something else. She trailed off, a fit of coughing overtaking her. Sixties looked up from the game, its six eyes blinking in what Sarah had come to recognize as concern. It lumbered over, gently nudging her with its snout. I'm okay, big guy, Sarah assured it, patting its leathery hide. Just a little under the weather. Guess even a Girl Scout's immune system has its limits when it comes to alien planets. As if to underscore her words, a wave of dizziness washed over her. Sarah stumbled, catching herself on Six's flank. The world swam before her eyes, the bioluminescent walls of the cave pulsing in a nauseating rhythm. Okay, she muttered, maybe not so okay after all. Sixties let out a low, worried rumble. It gently guided Sarah to her makeshift bed of fronds, using its bulk to prop her up. Thanks, Sarah said weakly. You know, for a creature I initially thought was trying to eat me, you're not half bad at this caretaking thing. She tried to focus on Sixties, but her vision was blurring. The cave seemed to stretch and warp around her, the glowing organisms on the walls forming intricate, swirling patterns. Wow, Sarah breathed. That's beautiful. And probably a sign that I'm hallucinating. That can't be good. Sixties tilted its head, clearly picking up on Sarah's distress. It turned towards the cave entrance, then back to Sarah, letting out a series of complex vocalizations. What is it, boy? Sarah asked, her words slurring slightly. Is Timmy stuck in the well? Wait, no. Wrong planet. Wrong species. What are you trying to tell me? Sixes repeated the sounds, more insistently this time. It nudged Sarah's backpack, then gestured towards the acid rain beyond their protective bubble. Sarah's fevered mind raced, trying to piece together what Six Eyes was communicating. You want to go out there. But the rain, it'll kill you. Sixes shook its massive head, then mind eating something. Food, Sarah guessed. No, medicine? You think there's something out there that can help me? The alien creature bobbed its head in what had become their shared gesture for yes. But Sixes, Sarah protested. You can't go out in that. And we can't turn off the electromagnetic field. We'd be exposed. Sixes let out a frustrated growl, pacing the small confines of their shelter. Suddenly, it stopped, its eyes lighting up with what Sarah could only describe as an idea. It lumbered over to the pile of leftover fronds and began arranging them with surprising dexterity. Sarah watched in feverish fascination as Sixes crafted a crude but effective covering for itself, layering the fronds to create a sort of acid-proof poncho. "You clever beast," Sarah murmured, a smile tugging at her lips despite her discomfort. "You're going to brave the storm for me, aren't you?" Sixes rumbled in affirmation, adjusting its makeshift armor. "Wait," Sarah said, an idea cutting through her delirium. She fumbled with her backpack, pulling out her multi-tool. With shaking hands, she pried off the casing of her holo-recorder and extracted a small component. "Here," she said, holding out the piece to Sixes. "It's a beacon. When you find whatever it is you're looking for, activate it. It'll help you find your way back to me." "Thanks, big guy," Sarah said, patting its flank without thinking. To her surprise, Sixes didn't recoil. Instead, it made a low, almost purring sound. As Sarah continued her preparations, she found herself talking to Sixes, explaining what she was doing and why. The creature couldn't understand her words, of course, but it seemed to grasp the intent behind her actions. "You know," Sarah said as she finished setting up a system to collect rainwater, "I'm starting to think you might be a lot smarter than I initially gave you credit for. I mean, you recognize the danger of the storm, you have a prepared shelter, and you even decided to share it with me. That's not just animal instinct, that's problem solving." Sixes tilted its head, regarding her with what Sarah could have sworn was thoughtfulness. "I wonder," Sarah mused, an idea forming. She picked up a stick and drew a simple diagram in the dirt floor of the cave, a crude representation of herself and Sixes. To her amazement, Sixes studied the drawing intently. Then, using one massive claw, it added to the picture, sketching a rough outline of the storm clouds above the figures. "Holy crap," Sarah breathed. "You can communicate abstractly. You're not just smart, you're sapient." The implications of this discovery whirled through Sarah's mind. She wasn't just stranded on an alien planet. She was in first contact with an intelligent alien species. The magnitude of the situation was almost overwhelming. Before she could fully process this revelation, a deafening crack of thunder shook the cave. The storm had arrived. "Okay, deep existential revelations later," Sarah muttered. "Survival now." She secured the door just as the first drops of rain hit, but this was no ordinary rain. The droplets sizzled and steamed where they hit the ground, leaving small pockmarks in the stone. "Acid rain," Sarah realized with horror. Of course it's acid rain. Why wouldn't it be acid rain on Murder Planet? Sixes let out a low, mournful sound. Sarah turned to see it looking at her with what she could only describe as concern. "Don't worry, big guy," she said, forcing a smile. "We've got shelter, we've got water collection set up, and we've got each other. We're going to ride this out." As if to challenge her optimism, the cave shuddered under the assault of the storm. Small rivulets of the caustic rain began to seep through cracks in the ceiling. "No, no, no," Sarah muttered, looking around frantically for a solution. Her eyes landed on her backpack, and an idea struck. "Sixes, I need your help," she said, grabbing her pack. She pulled out the salvaged energy cell from the escape pod. "This is a power source. If I can rig it to create an electromagnetic field, we might be able to repel the acid rain. But I need something conductive to create a coil." Sixes tilted its head, clearly not understanding the words but sensing the urgency. It turned and lumbered deeper into the cave, returning moments later with a mouthful of strange metallic vines. "Perfect," Sarah exclaimed. She quickly got to work, stripping the vines and winding them into a crude coil. With trembling hands, she connected it to the energy cell. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, with a hum and a crackle, a shimmering field of energy sprang to life around them. The acid rain hissed and evaporated as it hit the barrier. It worked. Sarah laughed, half in relief, half in disbelief. "Sixes, we did it." The creature rumbled happily, nuzzling Sarah's shoulder in a gesture that was surprisingly gentle for its size. As the storm raged outside, Sarah sank to the ground, exhausted but exhilarated. She'd survived another day on this hostile world, and she'd made a breakthrough in interspecies communication. Day 5, final update. She spoke into her holo-recorder. Current status: alive, sheltered, and apparently in an alliance with a sapient alien life form. Just another day on planet Purple. She looked up at Sixes, who had settled down beside her, its bulk providing comforting warmth in the cool cave. You know, Sarah mused, between your brawn and my brains, we might just have a chance of surviving this planet. What do you say, partner? Ready to show this world what a human and a whatever you are can do together? Sixes rumbled in what Sarah chose to interpret as agreement. As the storm howled outside their protected bubble, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. She was still stranded, still in constant danger, but for the first time since she'd crashed on this planet, she didn't feel alone. Together, they settled in to wait out the storm, an unlikely pair united by the universal drive to survive, adapt, and overcome. Survival of the smartest. Sarah crouched at the edge of a small clearing, her makeshift spear clutched tightly in her hands. The alien sun hung low on the horizon, casting long, purple shadows across the landscape. It had been 3 days since her encounter with the massive creature she dubbed Sixes, and in that time, she'd learned 2 crucial things about planet Purple. Everything was trying to kill her, and the weather was about to become her worst enemy. Day 5 on this delightful death world. Sarah whispered into her holo-recorder. Good news, I found water and some fruit that doesn't immediately poison me. Bad news, there's a storm coming, and something tells me it's not going to be a gentle spring shower. She glanced up at the sky, where ominous clouds were gathering. They roiled and churned with an unnatural energy, flashes of sickly green lightning illuminating their depths. I've noticed the local wildlife getting more active, more aggressive, Sarah continued. They're preparing for something big, which means I need to stop admiring the view and get my butt in gear. With a grunt, Sarah hoisted the bundle of alien fronds she'd collected. Her original plan had been to weave them into a simple lean-to, but the approaching storm had forced her to think bigger. She needed a shelter that could withstand whatever planet Purple was about to throw at her. As she made her way back to the small cave she'd been using as a temporary base, a low, rumbling growl stopped her in her tracks. Sarah's heart raced as she slowly turned, coming face to face with a now familiar set of 6 eyes. Hey, Sixes, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Fancy meeting you here. Again. The creature snorted, pawing at the ground, but it didn't attack. Instead, it seemed to be waiting. Sarah's mind raced. In the days since their encounter, she'd spotted Sixes several times, always watching her from a distance. Was it hunting her, studying her, or was there something else going on? A crack of thunder split the air, making them both jump. Sixes looked up at the roiling clouds, then back at Sarah. To her amazement, it gestured with its massive head towards a nearby rock formation. Are you trying to tell me something? Sarah asked, hardly believing what she was seeing. Sixes snorted again, more insistently this time. It took a few steps towards the rocks, then looked back at her expectantly. Okay, I'm coming, Sarah said, hefting her bundle of fronds. But I swear, if this is some elaborate trap to eat me, I'm going to be very disappointed in both of us. She followed Sixes to the rock formation, which turned out to be the entrance to a large cave system. The creature lumbered inside without hesitation, and after a moment's consideration, Sarah followed. The interior was surprisingly spacious, with multiple chambers branching off from the main cavern. What caught Sarah's attention, however, were the walls. They were covered in bioluminescent organisms, casting a soft, ethereal glow throughout the cave. Wow, Sarah breathed, momentarily forgetting her predicament. It's beautiful. Sixes made a rumbling sound that Sarah could have sworn was agreement. It moved to one of the smaller chambers, curling up on a bed of what looked like soft moss. Oh, I get it, Sarah said, realization dawning. This is your storm shelter, isn't it? And you're sharing it with me. The creature blinked its 6 eyes in what Sarah chose to interpret as confirmation. "Well, aren't you full of surprises?" she murmured. "All right. 6 eyes. Looks like we're roommates for the duration. Let's see if we can't make this place a bit more human-friendly." Over the next few hours, Sarah worked tirelessly to prepare for the coming storm. She used her fronds to create a small sleeping area for herself, wove some into baskets to collect water, and even managed to fashion a crude door to cover the cave entrance. All the while, Sixes watched her with what seemed like growing curiosity. At one point, when Sarah was struggling to move a heavy rock to secure her door, the creature lumbered over and nudged it into place with ease. The creature's massive paws swiped at the opening, its claws leaving deep gouges in the stone. But the gap was too narrow for it to enter. It roared in frustration, the sound reverberating through the small cave. Sarah backed away, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "That's right. You big ugly, whatever you are," she panted. "Can't get me in here, can you?" As if in response, the creature slammed its bulk against the cliff face. The entire cave shuddered, and a fine rain of dust and pebbles showered down from the ceiling. "Okay, note to self. Don't taunt the giant alien monster," Sarah muttered. She watched as the creature continued its assault on her shelter, each impact sending tremors through the stone. It was only a matter of time before the unstable cave collapsed around her. Sarah's mind raced, analyzing her options. She was trapped, with a murderous alien beast on one side and solid rock on the other. Her meager supplies wouldn't last long, and she doubted the creature would give up any time soon. "Come on, Sarah," she whispered to herself. "You didn't survive a spaceship attack and a crash landing just to become alien chow. Think." Her eyes fell on her multi-tool, and a desperate plan began to form. It was risky, borderline suicidal, but it was all she had. Working quickly, Sarah used the multi-tool to pry loose several sharp pieces of rock from the cave floor. She then tore strips of fabric from her shirt, using them to lash the stone shards to the tool, creating a crude but wickedly sharp spear. "I really hope your hide isn't as tough as it looks," Sarah said, testing the weight of her makeshift weapon. Another impact rocked the cave, and a sizable crack appeared in the ceiling. It was now or never. Taking a deep breath, Sarah gripped her spear and charged towards the cave entrance. The creature, seeing her approach, renewed its efforts to break through. Its massive paw swiped at her, missing by mere inches as Sarah ducked and rolled. Using the creature's arm as a bridge, Sarah scrambled out of the cave and onto its back. The beast bellowed in surprise, twisting and bucking to dislodge her. Sarah held on for dear life, her fingers tangled in its coarse fur. "Sorry about this," she grunted, raising her spear. With all her strength, she brought it down on the creature's head, aiming for the cluster of eyes. The makeshift weapon struck true, sinking deep into the alien flesh. The creature let out an ear-splitting shriek of pain and rage. It reared up, nearly vertical, and Sarah felt herself slipping. In a moment of desperation, she yanked the spear free and leaped clear of the thrashing beast. She hit the ground hard, the impact driving the air from her lungs. Dazed, she looked up to see the creature staggering, purple blood oozing from its wound. To Sarah's amazement, instead of pressing its attack, the beast backed away. Its remaining eyes regarded her with what she could have sworn was a mix of pain, fury, and respect. "Yeah, that's right," Sarah wheezed, struggling to her feet. "Humanity's tougher than we look." The creature snorted, shaking its massive head. Then, to Sarah's utter disbelief, it turned and lumbered back into the forest, leaving her battered but alive. As the sound of the creature's retreat faded, Sarah sank to her knees, the adrenaline draining from her system. She was alive, against all odds, but she knew this was just the beginning of her struggles on this alien world. Day 2, update. She spoke into her holo recorder, her voice shaky. Encountered local fauna. Big, mean, and apparently not used to its prey fighting back. Current status: still stranded, slightly traumatized, but alive. Sarah looked down at her makeshift spear, now stained with alien blood. Note to self: fashion more weapons, and maybe some armor. Something tells me that won't be my last close encounter on planet Purple. As if to punctuate her words, a distant roar echoed through the forest, followed by another, closer answering call. Sarah gripped her spear tighter, a grim smile spreading across her face. "Bring it on, Planet Purple," she muttered, pushing herself to her feet. "This human girl isn't going down without a fight." With that, Sarah turned and headed back into the alien forest, her mind already working on plans for shelter, weapons, and survival. The planet had thrown its worst at her, and she was still standing. Whatever came next, she would face it head-on, armed with nothing but her wits, her will to survive, and the indomitable spirit of humanity. Primal encounter. Sarah had been trudging through the alien forest for what felt like hours. The dense purple foliage seemed to close in around her, the air thick with unfamiliar scents, and the constant drone of unseen creatures. Her legs ached, and a thin sheen of sweat covered her skin, reacting strangely with the metallic tang in the atmosphere to create an iridescent sheen. Day 2 on Planet Purple. Sarah spoke into her holo recorder, her voice hoarse. "Water supplies critical. No luck finding a safe source yet. Everything here seems to be some shade of purple or orange, which is really messing with my ability to identify potential water sources." She paused, leaning against a tree fern to catch her breath. The bark felt oddly warm and slightly pulsed beneath her palm, almost as if it had a heartbeat. Sarah jerked her hand away, suppressing a shudder. Note to self: don't touch the flora without protection. For all I know, that tree could be digesting me right now. A rustling in the underbrush made Sarah freeze. She'd heard similar sounds throughout her trek, but this was closer, more deliberate. Her hand tightened around her multi-tool as she scanned the area, heart pounding. The rustling grew louder, accompanied by a low gurgling sound that made the hairs on the back of Sarah's neck stand up. Whatever was making that noise, it was big. "Okay, Sarah," she whispered to herself. "Time to use that big brain of yours." Her eyes darted around looking for anything she could use. They landed on a cluster of bulbous, fruit-like growths hanging from a nearby fern. An idea sparked in her mind. Moving as quietly as she could, Sarah crept towards the fern. The rustling was getting closer, punctuated by snuffling sounds that reminded her of a giant, hungry pig. She reached up, grasping one of the purple fruits. It came free with a soft pop, oozing a thick orange liquid. The scent was overpoweringly sweet, making Sarah's eyes water. Perfect. Just as she turned to implement her plan, the underbrush exploded outward. Sarah found herself face to face with a creature straight out of a nightmare. It was massive, easily 3 times her size, with a body that seemed to be a horrifying mix of bear, rhinoceros, and something distinctly alien. 6 eyes, arranged in a circular pattern, swiveled to focus on her. A mouthful of jagged teeth opened in a roar that shook Sarah to her bones. Pure instinct took over. Sarah hurled the fruit directly at the creature's face cluster. It exploded on impact, showering the beast in sticky, pungent juice. The creature reared back, its roar turning into a confused bellow. Sarah didn't wait to see what would happen next. She turned and ran, her feet barely touching the ground as adrenaline propelled her forward. Behind her, she could hear the creature thrashing about, likely trying to clear its eyes of the fruit's juice. She ducked under low-hanging fronds and leaped over twisted roots, her mind racing faster than her feet. She needed a plan. Fast. This thing was sure to recover soon, and in a straight chase, she didn't stand a chance. A flash of orange caught her eye, a cliff face peeking through the trees. Sarah adjusted her course, praying that she'd find something, anything, that could help her survive this encounter. The trees thinned as she approached the cliff, revealing a sheer wall of striated orange stone that stretched high into the alien sky. Sarah's heart sank as she realized there was nowhere left to run. She spun around, back pressed against the warm rock, as the sounds of pursuit grew louder. "Think, think, think," Sarah muttered, her eyes darting around desperately. That's when she saw it. A narrow crevice in the cliff face, just wide enough for her to squeeze through. Without hesitation, she dove for it. The opening was tight, the rock scraping against her sides as she forced her way in. Behind her, an enraged roar signaled the creature's arrival. Sarah could feel its hot breath on her legs as she scrambled deeper into the crevice. Suddenly, the narrow passage opened up into a small cave. Sarah tumbled forward, scraping her hands and knees on the rough floor. She quickly scrambled to her feet, spinning around to face the entrance. Purple ferns the size of trees swayed gently in a breeze Sarah couldn't feel. The sky above was a deep, unsettling orange, with two suns hanging low on the horizon. In the distance, something that looked suspiciously like a mountain floated serenely a few hundred feet off the ground. "Okay, Sarah," she said aloud, her voice shaky. "You wanted to see alien tech up close. Wish granted. Now what?" She did a quick inventory of her resources. The backpack she brought aboard the Zarkonian ship was still intact, containing a few protein bars, a canteen of water, her holo-recorder, and a multi-tool. Not exactly ideal survival gear for an alien planet, but it was better than nothing. The escape pod itself was a lost cause, but Sarah managed to salvage a few pieces of equipment that looked promising. A device that might be a universal translator, some kind of energy cell, and what appeared to be a first aid kit designed for Zarkonian physiology. As Sarah gathered her meager supplies, a distant roar made her freeze. It was unlike anything she'd ever heard before, part lion, part thunder, and all terrifying. She suddenly became very aware of how exposed she was. "Right," Sarah muttered, eyeing the dense alien foliage. "First order of business. Find shelter." She stepped out of the ruined escape pod, her feet sinking slightly into the spongy, lavender-colored ground. The air was thick and humid, with an odd metallic tang that made her cough. Sarah activated her holo-recorder. Speaking as she began to move cautiously towards the tree line. "Day 1 on. Let's call it Planet Purple," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Crashed here in an alien escape pod after sneaking aboard a Zarkonian research vessel. Current status: stranded. Supplies limited. No idea if the atmosphere is toxic to humans long term, but I'm still breathing, so yay." Another roar echoed through the alien forest, closer this time. Sarah picked up her pace. Local fauna sounds, big and hungry. Priority is finding safe shelter and a source of water. After that, I don't know. The pod's communication systems are fried. I have no way to call for help. Sarah paused at the edge of the forest, looking back at the wreckage of her escape pod. From this angle, she could see the long furrow it had carved into the planet's surface, a trail leading directly to her. "On the plus side," she continued, forcing a smile, "if anyone's looking for me, I've left a pretty obvious breadcrumb trail. On the downside, so has anything else that might be hunting me." With one last glance at the alien sky, Sarah stepped into the forest. The massive ferns closed around her, their fronds casting strange, shifting shadows in the orange light. She tried not to think about how far from home she was, or how slim her chances of rescue might be. "Come on, Sarah," she whispered to herself as she pushed deeper into the alien wilderness. "You wanted an adventure. Time to woman up and survive this." As if in response, a chorus of unearthly howls rose from the depths of the forest. Sarah clutched her makeshift alien multi-tool tighter and pressed on. Whatever this planet had in store for her, she was determined to face it head-on. After all, she was humanity's accidental ambassador now, and she had a lot to prove.